Now they're looking great, right? I hope so. So, live from AWS, reInvent in Las Vegas. Thank you for joining me. Interesting keynote this morning from AWS CTO Werner Vogels, which usually, compared to Andy Jassy, who always has the first day, hits less of the business streams, but more of what developers really care. He's extremely popular with developers. So with no further ado, let me share with you what I took note-wise. Oh, interesting. So that is not here either. So what I'm going to do is improvising here. I'm just going to leave this running and read from you here from the screen. Normally I share my key tweets from the event. So interesting, first of all, not related to the keynote, a huge number of sponsors. Wished I could show it here. So let me try one more time if this works now. Yeah, we got more here to see. Here we go. Always good when technology finally works. We'll have to do some editing with this afterwards. So huge amounts of sponsors, as you can see, huge interest, huge show floor, lots of people there, 19,000 people attending. Last year was 11,000, so really something going for Amazon here. Big difference, much less announcements from Werner this year than last year. Looks like Jassy took most of the good things for him from that, right? So. And he did a good job at reiterating what was announced yesterday. I'm not going to do this. Look at my presentation from yesterday. And he really goes back to what he caters the best, as I mentioned, developers, how to build as builders is a general appeal here, and how to generally build next generation applications. Right. The first highlight on his side was the new, which he announced, new Amazon Kinesis Analytics, which makes it better. Right. Amazon launched Kinesis 2 years ago. Making sense as an analytical service of live streaming events. Yesterday we saw the stream of populating data in the cloud with Kinesis. Today we see an easier way to analyzing this Kinesis Firehose, and which other better way than SQL. No surprise about that. Let me see how I can make this a little more attractive. Well, anyway. Like this maybe. In simple 3 steps, you can significantly easier, as a developer, analyze the events which are happening on the Kinesis side with in a default format with SQL statements, right? It was good to see some information, science background, him citing Gall's law, that you can't build a complex system from the scratch. All complex systems are started out of simple systems, and as such, an easy way to run things as a philosophy. Instances were not announced yesterday, so Werner had the chance to introduce the X1, more than 2 terabyte of RAM, 100 Haswell processors, so very good for next generation applications using in memory. I think it's the largest instance you can get hold of right now in the public cloud for that. And shout out to SAP HANA, which you could also run on there. 2 terabyte not being too much. SAP likes to give a little more, but a number of SAP deployments could run X1 on the HANA side. And then going from the large scale side to the low end side with the Nano instance, I didn't capture the specs, but even smaller than the existing T2 instances, which you can then scale perfectly to run microservices on that. And a lot of examples of how using this in general. Moving over to the container side, very popular uptake for that. If you look at companies like Viacom, Expedia, Nokia building container-based solutions on top of ECS, announced last year. Everybody's crazy about containers. And then showing an interesting story with Jason Fischel, the VP of Engineering of Remind. Remind is a parent reminder application, and they build them on top using the container service. I had a tweet out there which seemed to have been captured by Storyfy about their footprint, which was surprisingly small. If I remember by heart, they only had about 800 microservices running. I would have expected for, he even said 30 million subscriber application, to have to scale out significantly more. Also, the ratio between microservice and dedicated DCS instance seemed to be very few container servers running per instance. So interesting point here. Really important to make it easier, and really back to the highlight really from last year, AWS Lambda. Werner talked about how important Lambda is, but it's much easier to make it easier to run. Great quote from him, right? No server is easier to manage than no server, hinting to that because you don't know about a Lambda server. That's all handled by AWS for you. So very, very powerful solution for that. And AWS introduced 8 new Lambda services, all of them important to use, important use cases in general for developers. So it will make even easier choice on the Lambda side. But the really big hitters were more support for WPC, for VPC, which is really a key thing for enterprise to keep their data secure. And even more important, long-running scheduled functions. I think the limit was 60 seconds. So for, like, say, an IoT scenario to write a Lambda rule, you had to replenish. That wasn't really practical. But now you can have long-running functions and a custom retry, right? You may not want to retry partially disconnected information, which only updates like 2-3 times a day at a standard interval, but it is a custom interval for that. So definitely a good step forward to make more Lambda application. And he announced Python for Lambda. Werner doesn't seem to be a fan, a blank space language. He thought they were outdated. But some applause for that. Python is the way for lots of things, very popular. Personally, I'm not a too big fan of it either, but hey, you have to go with the times. And then going over to the mobile side, Amazon has done a lot of things around mobile testing with the test bed and mobile service in general, and basically inspired me from behind every great man is an even greater, better woman or partner. So behind every great mobile app, there's a better tech stack behind it, which would really fit to that. And next, it was kind of like a professorial thing when I used to be a professor back in the Netherlands. So talked about Jim Gray and the principle of keeping things simple and less complex. We had a shout out to Mark Benioff with the connected toothbrush. Warming up for a long time. Something may have gone wrong. We have to figure out if there's some details in this, because it was a very long time that Werner talked about IoT examples, use cases, why it's important, instead of what we usually see from AWS, talk about the technology, you know what to build, right? You have the use case. So very different tune. Not sure if they were dancing on the table because something was canceled or missing. Here an example from basketball, right? Sports applications are always very interesting for next generation applications because they need to get streamed to millions of fans, they have to process data, they include analytics, they have to have great UIs and visualization, so always very popular there. And then next up, as we talked about the Internet of Things, we came, BMW came up on stage, a great brand name to have, and shared that they're building the learning map, the digital map in the BMW 7 Series coming out, where they collect car events. And basically, I see it like rebuilding Waze for all of us who don't have a BMW 7 Series. I'm not even sure how a BMW can compete with even all their cars. I sold 2 million last year. I don't know how many subscribers something like Waze and similar applications have as a neutral application for that. Carasso, car as a service, is the new buzzword. Let's see if that sticks. We will see where that goes. But interesting that Amazon was chosen by BMW, but on the other side, not so surprising, because actually if BMW wants to build a platform for a car which they sell globally, they need to have a global infrastructure as a service partner. Being based in Germany and the latest development about the Safe Harbor Act, they're probably happy that Amazon has a German instance. Basically, they could have built this on Microsoft, and they could have built this on AWS. Not so many options for somebody coming from Europe, building something globally, worried about security. And then the cat was out of the dog. Werner announced AWS IoT, which is Amazon's attempt to sum up things more into a platform, string things together. It was Dr. Wood, as yesterday, who actually outshirted from a fashion perspective, I think, Werner, when I talked about Werner's t-shirt this today. And there's 4 main components in AWS IoT. Obviously, device gateway, talking MQTT and TLS. And publishing the pub/sub memory. And interesting, pub/sub very powerful, but as you pay for the messages, that's the interesting thing. We didn't talk about the monetization. It's only monetized through the messages, through the SNS service on the AWS IoT side, and then the underlying service that you use beyond the 4, which I'm walking you through. You could quickly generate significant costs if somebody plays with these subscriptions in this model. But an elegant solution for solving this. Of course, after the device gateway comes a rules engine. Little conversation with my German colleague Rene Büst about which options really a BMW would have had here. And then you can run rules on top of these after they came through the gateway on this rules engine from a variety of things. You can plug in, again, Kinesis logic. You can plug in machine learning on the Amazon provided side. So interesting perspective from that, interesting capabilities in the rule engine. The rules seem to be easy to be built. And then really the differentiating thing, there's also registry for all the devices that you know where they are, is that Amazon builds a shadow, a virtual representation of the thing, which is really helpful because you can manage the thing through the shadow. Think about, you don't know exactly what the state is, or you're not connected to the thing. You can manipulate, control, test what you're doing to things through this shadow capability, which I haven't heard from the other IoT providers having something similar. Everybody has representation. Everybody tries to save state something. Not sure if somebody has something elegant as is going to be follow-up with any other IoT platform provider. And there's SDK shipping. It's also interesting how mature the offering is. Like yesterday, we saw that with QuickSight, partners already on the platform. Today, we see 3 SDK shipping with Java for C and for Arduino boards. And we see a number of partners already building applications on that. But before that, we saw Patrick Pinkston, VP of IS at John Deere, talking about interesting to see how much agriculture is using high-tech, how many processes are in a combine and a tractor, and how they're building applications for the farmers on AWS. But he wasn't, unfortunately, very specific on what they really are using for AWS. It was probably the worst or the least specific, not even guessing, a piece of what a customer on stage yesterday or today is using on the AWS side. And then a nice quote of the Gestalt principle. Lots of hardware partners, also impressive here, right? Who's who of people and vendors who want to do something here. Of course, Intel is there, Broadcom is there, Qualcomm is there, Texas Instruments is there. Missing a few more. Look at the logos, but really impressive how Amazon comes out with a V1 of, in this case, the IoT platform, and having substantial uptake in the ecosystem already. It's not like they build it and other people have to come there with there. And then the first woman stage at the very, very end, Diane Bryan from Intel. A good presentation from technical part, but I'm not sure if anybody talked to Diane this developer event. She's talked about some nice hardwaring functions around supporting the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I think it was a poverty or hunger-related part. So all good things from the fashion, but not really interesting for developers. And then from a fashion perspective, I think Matt Wood outshirted Werner today. There was not even talk about what shirt Werner was talking. He didn't even try to get in that. And then the event's going to be Zed going to be the main act tonight. Overall, I think maybe it was the same problem like yesterday. I again opted to watch this from the room because there's no elbow room to type, and I can't get the story going. I might not have been out in time for this hangout with you guys. So really surprised how little audience interaction there was, at least from listening to the webcast here. So what are my 3 top takeaways? Definitely the IoT platform from today. Really important for Amazon to play in that space. What we see is when customers are doing IoT, they always look at Amazon. It's a given. The main attraction where it all starts is made fun of a gentleman who's working on IoT at the analyst reception Monday. Well, 3-4 years, S3 was a dead area, and Amazon was just growing, was running, was stable. Now it's getting really, really interesting, and with Lambda functions running on it, and other things like Snowball interesting. But S3, the pure capability to store all that information, is something which enterprises look at Amazon. Then other things additionally also interesting. Even before the IoT platform announcements, this was one of the shortlisted platforms for doing IoT in enterprise. And I think the IoT platform will help Amazon more to attract even more, but it has to be even more packaged, right? Enterprises don't want to listen to Amazon reference to build things for the same use case, but everybody a little tiny different, right? There's so many services inside of Amazon that even if companies build the same thing, like in the past, a mobile application for a certain thing, they would end up of picking different pieces from the whole Amazon catalog of functionalities. And that's something which voice enterprise, they want to hear you build something for A and you do step 1 to 10. They don't want to have too much freedom for their developers, which sounds very negative from one side, but freedom for developers, and some of my gray hair comes from that, from running developers at software vendors and running development teams, managing development teams, is you have to deliver at a certain point. And that is something which voice enterprise. But IoT, one key takeaway, good progress from Amazon to bring that. I would like to see a little more of a platform. And then obviously Amazon is doing a big push in regards of getting more application side content ownership. Last year, they were very open overall. If you're making significant profits in the enterprise, that is an area which Amazon will be interested in, look and see if they can assess to do something. Obviously, they decided to do something with the BI space. The offering is, I think, very attractive. It's also the first offering which directly goes to the business user, right? 2 years ago, Amazon announced workspaces. Also interesting, an EUC capability, virtual desktop capability. I hadn't had a chance to check where that is going right now. And obviously, business users are using that as a product, but it's not sold to them, right? The capability is the interesting thing of the new BI offering is that a business user, by giving access to different, I talked to some of the developers yesterday on the show floor, or product managers, by giving access to what's already stored in S3, it will automatically make sense of what's there. So that's exactly the automation you want to have, which disrupts the existing vendors because there's no talking to IT, no consulting, no implementation part of it. Of course, on the flip side, the big question is, does it work? Does it create good enough value? So that's definitely a big question to see, and we'll have to see on the first use cases. Amazon's pretty confident, certain that that's the case. And then more and more as a third takeaway after IoT and QuickSight, hopefully I said it correctly, the new BI offering, having a mental shortcut here after 4 days in Las Vegas. I think it's QuickSight. Can't look it up right now as I'm trying to look at the camera. The third one is say like moving clearer towards the migration in the enterprise. Helping companies to use the new database offering, new service with MariaDB, both the migration and the footprint assessment service and porting pieces of that and mapping pieces of that should help Amazon to get more relevant where the real stickiness is in transactional data and enterprises. And that data is key part of all next generation application scenarios. Even for building a new application from scratch, I probably won't use a relational database for that. Maybe for certain aspects, but not for the core problem I'm trying to solve. That's almost SQL Hadoop databases. But I still have to make sense of the data and tie it into the transactional background. I need to know service level agreements, I know the customers, I know if they're entitled to do, I need to know where they are and so on. This all in transactional database, and I need to transfer them. If I can move them off, say in Amazon's case, what they're going after, say in Oracle or Microsoft license, into some of their database like in Aurora, that's a killing, that's a cost saving for customers, and we'll have to see how well that works. And then if everything is set, right, GE moving into AWS, as we learned from the GE CIO yesterday, you can't really have a better reference as a public cloud provider than a venerable company like GE, with a point of thought, of course, as GE is trying to become a software company. That means a lot of CapEx has to be invested into software. GE is probably learning that despite all their great product development experience, software is a little different animal than building turbines or all the other things, or fridges at some point, or light bulbs, because there's different dynamics in the CapEx. And GE can save some CapEx by moving to Amazon. So a little self-serving what GE does, but still a great brand name, which should give point of thought. And coming to the point here, to many CIOs out there, why not use a public cloud? And then the next question is skills, right? Vogels today talked a lot about, it's really about learning new platforms, learning about how doing things, getting certified as the main focus. And despite this event ballooning from, I think it was 6,000 or 7,000 2 years ago to way over 19,000, and the class being full, you can only train so many people at events and in classrooms, right? So Amazon will have to think about some MOOC, massively open online courses, parallel activities, and go to the trusted advisors. And as such, we saw the announcement of Amazon yesterday. Also saw yesterday a Rackspace, right? Very interesting. Traditionally an IaaS competitor for Amazon, bring their fanatical support to AWS. So different story on the Rackspace side then to look into why they're doing this, but definitely an interesting additional service offering of somebody. Maybe even I'm doing business with Rackspace, but I don't want to go into the Rackspace cloud anymore because I'm worried about the capex they can do there and their future and their presence in terms of, like, again, think of the canceled safe harbor agreement between the EU and North America. So services are very important. Knowing what to do in the cloud, learning more, going to the people like the system integrators that enterprise trust for their IT needs anymore, is overall the key thing that Amazon is really trying hard to get closer to the enterprise. So 3 takeaways, sum it up from the event. Good event for Amazon, IoT, the shift into QuickSight, into BI and end-user application, and catering closer to the enterprise in general, both from understanding what is sticky in the enterprise, that's the database, helping to migrate things there, and then providing the professional services by the trusted providers of these traditional services in the enterprise. On the concern side, I still think Amazon is now total firehose. You probably need Kinesis to process all the function features that are coming out. So that's a challenge for customers. 2-3 years ago, developers could stay on top single-handedly on top of Amazon. I think AWS, I think that's not going to be easy going forward. So we'll see some specialization in the ecosystem. It's really going to be interesting where developers will put their money, because you can't just keep up build learning something new that Amazon has done and then monetizing that either in your job or standalone or with a startup or wherever. So there will be a little slowdown in the mastering of skills there. And the overall thing is how can Amazon cater to the enterprise and get a portion of that enterprise? We're entering phase 2, slowly but steady, where everybody's competing on cloud. Large competitors like IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP down the road are measuring how much cloud revenue they're doing. They are dabbling into infrastructure as a service coming out of that. And it will take some load away from Amazon because, make the example for Oracle, everybody will know as a no-brainer. Ultimately, probably Oracle can manage an Oracle database better, or an Oracle application better in the Oracle cloud than in any other cloud, not just the Amazon cloud. So this will be load which Amazon will be missing at some point. It's good to see that they seem to realize that without addressing it publicly. That's very clear they won't. But why should they? But they're fighting for it, and that's what they have to do to remain the leader that they are, the winner that they are, and the leader that they are in the phase 1 of cloud adoption, where everybody was happy that Amazon was running the applications from. That's going to change. Won't know exactly when, but we're at the end of phase 1 and phase 2 slowly seeping into it. We'll see in the next week, for instance, what Oracle has in 2 weeks at Oracle Open World to say in regards and where their public cloud offerings are. We'll see where they are. And then become more of a platform. Like I said before, CIOs, CTOs don't like to see everything being done individually. If they really need the flexibility, yeah, that's the great news. But we're coming now into repetitive use cases, say for IoT, repetitive use cases for social sensing on the internet, making sense of the internet, revolutionizing communication and so on. So it's repetitive. So you want to see the same best practices. And the struggle Amazon has is that all their competitors say platform, 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 platform. So really not sure why Amazon is shying away from saying, here's the IoT platform or something. They've never done this. I don't think the developers will run out and flee away from there. Where should they go, frankly? So I think it's going to be important for Amazon to change Amazon. But overall, a great event for Amazon. Lots of innovation, too much innovation on Monday for even us analysts to get the arms around. Luckily, we had Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday to digest it. So I think we all are on top of that. So congratulations to a great event for Amazon. For enterprise, it really means it remains an important public cloud for you to look at. You should always, in my view, have a shortlist Amazon in your public cloud plans and your next generation application plans. They clearly are the market leader for now when it comes to public cloud, and they do a lot of innovation to be catering, getting even better to understand the enterprise. And that's the difference for them, right? They are there and they're trying to understand the enterprise better. Most of the competitors are still trying to get there. It doesn't help them there understand the enterprise because they still have to get there. All right, before I get too long, and this has been too long, and sorry for the technical difficulties, I'll edit it in the recording later. Thank you very much for watching. I do my mandatory check on the Q&A app if there's any question, but it looks like no. Well, somebody likes it, but okay, that's not a question. Well, thank you so much for watching. This was much longer, and again, sorry for technical difficulties.